Once upon a time, long before iRacing and online lobbies, before Formula One games were mainstream and consoles had 1 million subs, there was only one real racing simulator that mattered.
That game was Gran Turismo. And it wasn't just that it had better graphics and physics and more cars and tracks than any of the others. You see, Gran Turismo came from Japan, at a time when the idea of Japanese-only performance cars was mysterious. It had lots of cars we didn't get in the UK, and it was a great place to discover all the exciting ones that we'd never seen before. One of those cars came from Nissan, and it would stick in our heads for the next few decades. It was, of course, the GT-R. Okay, so it was the Skyline GT-R, but to those of us growing up in the 1990s and early 2000s, it was exciting, it was exotic, it was something that we didn't normally see. You didn't see many sporty Japanese cars over here. By the time Gran Turismo 5 came out, the Skyline and GT-R badges had diverged, and what we got was this, the R35. It was exciting, it was affordable, it was the ultimate supercar, perhaps for the PlayStation generation. It was something you could aspire to that would still be able to take on and worry the supercar big boys.
But now, 14 years later, the world has changed. Gran Turismo is not the only racing game on the block worth talking about. And while the GT-R has been facelifted not once, but twice, it's starting to feel a little long in the tooth to look at. Here though, we have what could be the final hurrah for the GT-R, the latest GT-R Nismo. With electricity becoming the new key goal for Nissan, and the kind of all-wheel drive tech and traction control found on the GT-R now pretty commonplace, is it going out in a blaze of glory, or will this be one goodbye too many?
Outside, the car looks pretty much the same as always, just a bit more Nismo-y. It's got bigger arches, bigger pretty much everything really, a massive rear wing, a big splitter at the front, and almost comical amounts of carbon fibre attached to the sills and the back and the front. Under the bonnet is the same 3.5 litre V6 engine as always, except rather than the original car's 480 horsepower 14 years ago, it's now got 600. And rather than 580 newton meters of torque, we're talking 650 on the Nismo. To get all that power, it has the same turbocharger as the GT3 racing car. To get technical, that means there's one fewer blade inside than the standard car, and each blade is 0.3 millimeters thinner. That adds up to a 14.5% decrease in mass internally, and therefore inertia, which basically just means it'll spin up faster. It doesn't increase power at all, but it should mean throttle response is better. It has 4 titanium-tipped exhausts to try and improve what was a pretty rubbish sound. And the 6-speed dual-clutch gearbox has been reprogrammed for faster response. The brakes are massive. They're carbon ceramics now. They are 410 mm at the front and 310 at the back, which makes them the largest ever fitted to any Japanese car.
All that carbon fibre isn't just there for show either. It brings a 10.5 kilogram reduction in weight, 4.5 kilograms from the front wings, 2 from the bonnet, 4 from the roof. Those front carbon louvres, by the way, increase downforce by 7 kilograms without adding drag. The brakes also drop over 16 kilograms thanks to the construction of the discs, which is, of course, unsprung weight. Oh, and those wheels save another 100 grams. It all adds up, you know.
The first things you notice when you drive the GT-R Nismo are the finger-light steering. It really is incredibly light, and just how firm it is. Now there are 3 settings on the dampers. There's a normal setting, an R mode, and a comfort mode. Although to call it comfort mode really is stretching the term. Even in comfort mode around town, it is a bit of a nightmare. It's bouncy, it's hard, it is firm. It feels like the ride control really doesn't know what to do with the car if the dampers are set to be slightly softer than it wants them to. But once you get it out of town, get it onto a nice, smooth B road, that's when you find out what this car is meant to do. I actually find that the R mode, the stiffest mode for the dampers, is the most pleasant to live with, mostly because it feels like the ride control was designed for that setting. The whole car feels like it knows what to do with each bump. It's still firm, it's still a jolt through you, but it settles down quickly. In comfort mode, because it's softer, it feels like everything can't be gathered up in quite the same way.
The right road for the GT-R is flat and winding. It's a track, essentially, but some of the UK's roads are still perfect for it. Nissan talks of Kaizen when it talks about the GT-R. It's the Japanese idea that to pursue perfection requires persistence, that there is a constant need to evolve and fine-tune to get better. That, they say, is why the GT-R is 14 years old and still being tweaked.
But when it all comes together, it really feels like this car can do things that no car should have the right to do. That steering is still light, but is full of wonderful feel. The ride control steps up and becomes excellent. It's this interesting mixture when you turn through a corner of a slightly floating adjustable sensation, but it is absolutely nailed to the ground. What you want to do is find as wide an entry as possible so that you can carry speed, because the speed that this thing can carry through the mid-corner is where it's really, really astonishing. You find yourself doing the same bit of road over and over again, just faster and faster, because each time you just go, no, it's got to understeer at some point. No, it's still going. It's still going, and it really is just an incredible experience of harmony between that amazing engine, the steering, which is so nice, and all the systems that are working underneath to make sure that every wheel has the right amount of traction at all times. It is extraordinary what a car can do that really is 14 years old. Actually, it may feel stiff, but because Nismo have got rid of 30 kilograms from this car, they've actually slackened the dampers off by about 20%, just so that, along with the specially designed Dunlop tyres, can help it stay in contact with the road. If they hadn't, and it became a lighter car with still stiff dampers, this thing would take off, I guarantee it. On the road, you're never ever going to find its limits. You really need to take it on a track to get anywhere close to what this thing can do. If I'm honest, the thing holding this car back is my heart rate, because it'll keep going faster and faster and faster until I'm pretty sure my brain is just going to go, nope, no, shut all my organs down in protest, because it just does things that I don't think I, certainly surrounded by all the things on a road, could ever dare to get close to. And then there's the brakes, those massive carbon ceramic units, which are very, very powerful. But sometimes you find with carbon ceramics that they can be a little bit lacking in modulation. But these ones are full of feel. They are excellent, and actually when you stamp your foot to the floor, you can find the car will move around a bit because of the stiffness of those dampers and how light it is. It really feels alive as you dig it in. Another reason it feels so mechanical is because that transmission reacts so strongly to everything when you're in the right mode. For example, if you pull off the throttle at high revs, you can feel the weight of the transmission jolting against each other. It will stop accelerating with an absolute thud. You get up the rev range and it goes and goes and goes, and you come off and go, whoa, God, It is a physical beast to control. If you change down a gear at the wrong point, you'll sometimes just give yourself a massive whack of unwanted torque if you're in the range of that turbo. You really have to work to make sure that you're doing everything in harmony properly. And speaking of the gearing, it is very, very fast. They've done great work in making it really fast, especially in auto mode. The problem is the paddles are just they're too firm. They take too much of a pull, which might seem like an odd thing to ask, but you can't flick it. You sometimes find when you go to change gear rapidly, you'll miss the shift because you haven't pulled it hard or fast enough. The thing is, it's really, really quite addictive. Despite the fact that this is a car that's thought of as getting all of its performance from the systems, the traction control and the four-wheel drive, it feels physical and mechanical. When you push the starter motor, there's this real mechanical noise. It's not just a whir, it sounds like the starter motor is really having to work to turn the car over. It sounds great. And then the engine is just, it's a drone, and the main thing you can hear in here is the whine of the transmission. When the GT-R first came out, it was that first car for the digital age. It was a car that was allowed to do almost otherworldly things because of all the systems that it had on it rather than the mechanics of it. These days, you've got to wonder if the world's caught up. And actually driving the GT-R Nismo, one of the things it really rams home is that, yeah, all those systems that were on this car first are everywhere now. Other things can do what this does, but this still feels special. It still feels like something that does more than it should be able to. And I don't think anyone looking to buy a car like this is going to care that it costs £180,000 and has not a great interior and is old and has been caught up. No. They're going to want to know that this feels different, that it feels special. They're going to be excited by the fact that it's firm and hard, but it turns into a bit of a monster in the right conditions, especially on a track. They're going to want to know that they're buying a car that really, really deserves the nickname Godzilla.